Global Citizen and PG Lang, which is Dave Free and Kendrick Lamar's company, announced Move Africa, a long-term vision to pioneer a world-class music touring circuit across the African continent. So, international advocacy organization Global Citizen and creative imprint PG Lang today announced Move Africa, a global citizen experience, which is a new long-term, large-scale effort to pioneer a first-of-its-kind international music touring circuit throughout the continent of Africa. Africa's first major music event, Move Africa Rwanda, will take place on December 6th at the BK Arena in Kigali, Rwanda. Pulitzer Prize winning artist and co-founder of PG Lang, Kendrick Lamar, will headline the event, and PG Lang will serve as the curator of Move Africa for the next 5 years. Move Africa is a global citizen's latest effort to address world inequities by creating job and entrepreneurship opportunities for the continent's emerging generations throughout an annual series of world-class events. So basically, they're basically trying to create a tour
Okay.
circuit across Africa. And many people might not know that how difficult it is to do touring in Africa, right? Like if you notice when artists go on tour, it's very, very rare that an artist is touring across Africa or going on tour and even in Nigeria. A couple months earlier this year, I talked about how Wizkid had announced that he probably isn't going to be
Mhm.
performing in Nigeria again. And I thought that was crazy. It didn't make any sense to me. But if you see like what happens with artists when they try and go, like Afro Nation, I went to Afro Nation in Miami um, in May, and I was thinking about going to Afro Nation in Lagos this year, like when it was announced mad long ago. But a couple weeks ago, they canceled it. They canceled it because they couldn't get like whatever logistics were needed to get done. They couldn't get it done. They made the announcement I think last week. The headliners were Burna Boy, Jay Huss, Little Sims, and some other people. But this has been a recurring problem for a lot of people. And it's been like, as somebody who is interested in business, uh, you're always thinking about the biggest problems. When you have the
Mhm.
biggest solutions, they make the most money. You know what I'm saying? Because they're problems that a lot of people are thinking about. And I always thought about like, why aren't like African artists going to Nigeria? You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons for that. Like obviously the price, like imagine what it costs to book Burna Boy. Like the tickets to Afro Nation Nigeria were gonna be like something like 30 or $40. That's how cheap they had to make the tickets for the people there to be able to afford them, to give you an idea. But I think the fact that PG Lang and Kendrick Lamar are gonna be trying to do this is interesting, and I'll be interested to see if it actually works. You know what I'm saying? They want to add 5 countries every year for the next
Or
5 years. It's a 5-year project. You know what I'm saying? And if they're able to get 25 countries like a tour circuit or to some effect, like be able to bring shows to all of those countries, I think that's dope. Because they don't get to see artists like we get to see artists.
attainable too. Like I feel like 5 per year, especially if you're sitting here like one of the issues I would be guessing is probably the lack of venues in these different countries to perform at. And if you need to build out infrastructure and do things like that, I think spacing it out over a year doing 5, I think that would actually work. I think the other problem is probably funding. Like funding is a thing that they can bring in PG Lang and the group that they're working with. So I mean, I think it would be really cool to see a tour circuit. I think it would turn almost like the Chitlin circuit here type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like when I see people saying like the
Mhm.
biggest problem is like paying the artist. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm a this is I'm not about to make this long-winded, but if I'm I don't know, if I'm Jay Huz, and Jay Huz is a bad example because he don't even tour in London. But if I'm Jay Huz, like, and I know that there's people in Africa who will listen to my music, and I know the progression of technology is eventually going to, like I said, internet is increasing across all these countries over the next 5 to 10 years. And this is going to be the biggest market for new music listeners and new just internet users over the next 5 to 10 years. Even if I got to take a cut on how much I'm getting paid to do this show, imagine all of those people like becoming fans of yours for a long period of time. It's a long play. You know what I'm saying? How at the beginning of artists' careers, they often don't make money on tour because they're just trying to get
Mhm.
like people to know who they are. I think you have to look at it the same way. You know what I'm saying? And I think this like associating yourself with a company like Kendrick Lamar's PG Lang, I think artists need to take that opportunity if they want to be that long term that long term type of artist. But I would love to go to a show like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, and whether or not we do like R&R out there, but I think I'm saying this and I'm speaking it. Like if they're doing media and they're doing stuff like that, and me and you can like go out there and do some media, I think that'd be dope. Even if we don't get to do media, I think it would be so cool for me and you to go to one of these countries and just like one,
Right.
see the country because I want to go to Africa, but two, go to a
I think
show
it would be
there.
dope too.
I think
I'd
that'd be
definitely
cool.
be down to do that. I think it just takes like putting out that first step, like really trying to talk to them, see what they're doing, if they need media, and if not that, like see how much tickets cost. Definitely.
Right. Right. Hey bro, I am I don't know, like every week it's like one or two things showing me that we're headed in the right direction. Like certain
Mhm.
people seeing it, certain people reposting it. You know what I'm saying? Like Black Bones reposting it and stuff like that on Twitter. His label, the head of his label reposted and commented on my stuff. Like that stuff is cool and that stuff is encouraging because um especially when you have interactions with people like that multiple times. Like the guy who's in charge of Black Bones' label, he had he followed us on Instagram months ago off of like some I don't even remember what video, but he followed us months ago. You know what I'm saying? So for him to see us on two different platforms talking about two different things, I think it's encouraging, you know what I'm saying, for the long term. Because, I'm being honest, the artists that I was supposed to interview, they didn't hit me back. They said
Right.
yes, I follow up, they didn't hit me back. But I'm not gonna I'm not gonna let the no's discourage me, you know what I'm saying? In my regular life and trying to get clients and this, I'm gonna get a ton of no's before I get yeses. So I'm just I don't know. I'm still
Yeah,
encouraged
I feel
regardless of
like,
what's happening.
especially with rejection, it's like sometimes that door wasn't the door you were supposed to be at in the first place. Like, I feel like I went to church today, and that was I feel like every
Yeah,
time I'm sitting there thinking about something, I'll have like a few weeks where I'm not going to church. I go in, and it didn't matter who the pastor was. He was talking exactly what I was thinking about. That's literally what he was talking about today. Was like sometimes getting rejected, having things not go the way you want. It's supposed to be that way. Like it's supposed to not be in that direction because you're supposed to be going
right,
somewhere else.
right, right. I definitely is I think that's important
Yeah.
to remember when that stuff happens. Like I had a couple things happen this last week, bro. Like I'll briefly talk about this, but we had the 2024 planning meeting for my job, and um, I the thing was our boss wanted to come in and have us have like these big ideas, right? What's the big idea that's gonna like really move us for the next year? And I last year I had this big idea for like us to do a podcast, host a podcast, because as a staffing company, like this is the best way to get clients. And everybody on the team thought it was a decent idea. Bro, this made me mad. This made me so mad. Everybody on the team thought it was a decent idea, but Michelle was like, "This isn't feasible. We don't have the money and the funds or the ability to do it." Right? And I was new, so at the time it didn't bother me that much. I was like, "All right, whatever." But then a couple months later, they hire a consulting firm to help them like with the business and with the marketing department. Their biggest idea, this consulting firm, they paid six figures, was the exact idea I gave them at the meeting last year, right? And so Michelle, the one who told me no, brings it to the team, and she's like, this is I think this is good. What do we think about this? And I wasn't gonna say nothing because I'm like, I don't like, you know what I'm saying? You don't at these jobs, I have sort of tried to disassociate from stuff like this because it's like you don't get like this good idea if it gets implemented. I don't get paid
Right.
more because it gets implemented. It works. I get paid what I get paid. So whether or not it goes through, I don't really put a much emotional investment in it. So I wasn't gonna say anything, but then somebody on the team was like, "Yo, AJ just gave you this idea 4 months ago," and I was like, I didn't say nothing, but then all of a sudden it wasn't a good idea anymore, so we didn't do it. So we had this meeting last week, right? And I come in, I don't really have like crazy ideas. I'm like, we should move to another platform. We should expand on LinkedIn because the newsletter I'm running on LinkedIn is at 30,000 followers. I'm giving like very strategic steps that don't
Right.
cost anything. And she was like, "That's cool," but then the PR person comes on after me, And the PR person's like, I have this idea for a podcast. I'd run it uh Hugo, who's the head of our entire like
Mhm.
set, which is like our department or whatever. She's over my boss. And Michelle's like, yo, this is a great idea. I'm greenlighting it to it. I didn't even, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Right. So I'm like, all right, whatever, whatever. I was like, I let go of that idea months ago, whatever. So then the copywriter, the content person comes on with his big idea and he leads with, I kid you not, this is how he leads with it. I stole this idea from AJ in our meeting last week. What? This dude's been at the company for 15 years. He's been at the company for 15 years. She's like, yo, I love this idea. Let's do it. Then Patrice comes on. Patrice, she's in charge of B to C.
Yeah,
So
business to
basically
customer,
how we interact with talent.
business to consumer, so
Yeah. So how we interact with talent. And she's like, I had this idea and it was just okay. But AJ gave me the idea to make it a great idea. She said this is all recorded. She's like, AJ gave me this is how he said we should I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So like that's three of the four ideas we're doing for next year stemmed from me. You know what I'm saying? And she didn't like my two ideas. And I'm like, "All right, whatever." So I try to let this stuff go, but then we get to the end of the meeting and she's like, "All right, we need reinvestment in our team, right? How are we gonna train you guys for the future moving forward to help you guys do your job or with where you wanna go in your career path?" And I've been doing a lot of courses and training on my own in paid advertising. And I was just like, I wanna be trained or I wanna get more assistance and help in paid advertising. I wanna get into that space. And my supervisor, Colleen, I had mentioned that with her prior, but she hadn't mentioned it to Michelle. So I was first. That was the first. As soon as she asked what we need, I said that, and Michelle didn't say anything. And then two other people came in and said two things, and she put them on the list. And then she followed up with, "Well, if it's not currently related to your job role or description, then we're not going to do it." Basically, alluding to the fact that what I asked for, they weren't going to do it. Now, it for a second, it was a little discouraging knowing I had contributed that much to the entire plan for the entire year, and she wasn't even willing to, like, entertain putting me in contact with the guy who does paid
yeah.
advertising at the company, or you know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of, like, fucked with me, but it was also reassuring knowing that, like, I know I know this isn't where I'm supposed to be at, you know what I'm saying? And that sort of reassured the fact that it's like she doesn't see what everybody else sees, which is that I'm bigger than the role I'm currently in. And she doesn't see any type of future where I'm not in this role. I don't think my job is at stake in the next coming months. But it was like she doesn't see me as anything more than the social media.
I
Even though every I know every
like,
and the crazy part of I'm gonna let you talk, but the crazy part about that is the rest of the team knows that. And the rest of the team tells me stuff like that all the time about how much I helped them. And like when the team mentions these things, I wasn't bothered by them bringing it up because I gave them the ideas knowing that they were
yeah.
going to use it. You know what I'm saying? But it was like, damn, Michelle never that I'm not gonna lie, that kind of bothered me for a little bit. But I turned it into like you said, like this is a door shut where I was like, I knew didn't want this, but I just kind of like pointed me in the wrong
Yeah.
direction. Like,
I feel like only thing I'm not gonna be long with it, but the only thing I'm gonna say is just I feel like it's kinda how you see it too. Like you could see it as her shutting you down and her being like, "Oh, I'm not messing with those ideas," or you could see it as, "Hey, I'm I'm smart enough to give you 4 or 5 business ideas to run an entire big company, so I can definitely, like you've been trying to do my own thing if I really want to. Because if I can sit here and help a company that's
yeah,
been a thing go to where they're go farther into where they're going and get better at what they're doing. If I can do that just for my ideas, 3 or 4 of the ideas are the ones you're taking into the next year, I feel like at that point, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know how to run a business. I know how to make something scale. I understand what business is. So it just reinforces the fact that you can do it yourself, like, you know what I mean? Like, you definitely can. You just gotta
yeah,
figure out what that is, and you
yeah.
gotta figure out, like, the direction you gotta go to get there.
I agree. I agree with you. I that stuff, I don't know,
Corporate's
bro.
tough, bro.
Corporate is yeah, bro. It's like I don't get this. And I don't see how people there's so many people here that are like been here. Like like I told you, Randy's been here for 15 years, bro. 15 years. And I'm just like, how do you deal with stuff like this?